Taehyun stood at attention in the briefing room of the coalition vessel Infinite Dawn. Around him, his new teammates towered over his human frame. Commander Vexthal, a reptilian Draxon with scales like polished obsidian, sat at the head of the long metal table. His yellow eyes studied a holographic display showing star charts and mission details. The commander's tail twitched with obvious irritation. He glanced at Taehyun, then back at his datapad. "I requested elite soldiers," Vexthal said, his voice a deep rumble. "They sent me a human." The other members of Unit 47 made sounds that might have been laughter. Crix, the massive insectoid warrior from the Manthar species, clicked his mandibles together. His exoskeleton gleamed under the cold lights, natural armor that could deflect plasma rounds. "Perhaps they thought we needed a mascot," Crix said. Taehyun kept his face neutral. He had heard worse during his 3 months with the coalition military. Humans were new to the galactic stage. Only 30 years had passed since first contact. Most species saw humans as weak, soft creatures with no natural defenses. No armor, no claws, no venom, no enhanced strength. "The mission parameters are simple," Vexthal continued, ignoring Taehyun's presence. 17 workers vanished from the mining colony on Vendros 9. No distress calls. No signs of struggle. We investigate and report findings to Coalition Command. Lysa, the Luminite tactical officer, shifted in her seat. Her body was composed of pure energy, contained in a humanoid shape glowing with soft blue light. Could be equipment failure. Maybe the atmospheric processors malfunctioned. Possible, Vexthal agreed, but unlikely. The facility's AI would have sent automated alerts. Something else happened there. Taehyun raised his hand slightly. "Permission to speak, Commander?" Vexthal's eyes narrowed. "Make it quick, human. Have there been other disappearances in the Outer Rim territories? Similar patterns?" The commander's expression darkened.
4 other incidents in the past 6 months.
"Different colonies, same results. No bodies, no evidence." "That suggests a predator," Taehyun said. "Something that hunts intelligently. Something that knows how to cover its tracks." Crix laughed, a harsh, chittering sound. "Listen to the human playing detective. What would your species know about real predators? You have no natural weapons." Taehyun met the insectoid's multifaceted eyes. "My species survived on a world where almost everything else was stronger, faster, and better armed than us. We learned to think our way through problems." "Enough," Vexthal snapped. "We depart in 2 hours, dismissed." The team filed out of the briefing room. Taehyun remained behind, studying the holographic display. The missing colonies formed a rough circle around an unexplored sector. Someone or something was testing the coalition's outer defenses. "Still here, Taehyun?" He turned to find Jiwoo standing in the doorway. She wore the gray uniform of Coalition Engineering Corps, her dark hair pulled back in a practical bun. They had grown up together in New Seoul, one of Earth's largest cities. She had joined the coalition as a civilian contractor while he had enlisted in the military. "Just looking at the data," he said. Jiwoo walked over to the display, her fingers dancing through the holographic interface. "I've been analyzing the colony reports. Whatever took those people was systematic. It hit during shift changes when the most people were gathered together. Smart," Taehyun observed, "and patient. These colonies are months apart. The commander doesn't respect you," Jiwoo said quietly. "None of them do. I know. It bothers you." Taehyun shrugged. "I'm used to it. Every alien species in the coalition thinks humans are weak. We're smaller, slower, and we don't have any special abilities." Jiwoo smiled. "They don't understand what makes humans dangerous. We're survivors, Taehyun. We don't quit." "Try telling that to Commander Vexthal. You'll show him," she said with confidence. "Just come back safe. I'll be monitoring everything from the ship. If you need anything, I'm here." Taehyun nodded. He appreciated having at least one ally aboard the Infinite Dawn. The rest of the crew treated humans like children playing at being soldiers. 2 hours later, Unit 47 boarded the dropship. The interior was cramped, designed for the average coalition species, which meant Taehyun had plenty of room while Crix had to fold his limbs awkwardly. The massive warrior glared at him as if this were somehow Taehyun's fault. The pilot, a floating jellyfish-like creature named Vosh, announced their descent to Vendros 9. Through the viewport, Taehyun watched the planet grow larger. It was an ugly world, all browns and grays with massive strip mines visible from orbit. The atmosphere was barely breathable, requiring filters for most species. Humans can't even breathe properly on most worlds. Crix muttered. Why the Coalition allows them in the military is beyond me. Because we signed the treaty, Lysa said. All member species must contribute forces to the vanguard. A waste of resources, Crix replied. Tae-hyun checked his equipment and ignored them. His rifle was standard Coalition issue, designed to work for any species. His armor was lighter than what the others wore, but it was better than nothing. He carried extra ammunition, medical supplies, and a combat knife his grandfather had given him. The knife was old earth steel, practically ancient, but Tae-hyun trusted it more than plasma cutters. The dropship touched down on a landing pad near the main facility. Wind howled across the barren landscape, carrying toxic dust that pinged against the ship's hull. Vextal was first out, his rifle ready, scanning for threats. The colony was silent. Emergency lights flickered in the buildings, casting strange shadows. Equipment hummed with power, but no workers moved through the streets. It looked like everyone had simply vanished mid-task. Spread out, Vextal ordered. Standard search pattern. Report anything unusual. Unit 47 moved through the colony in pairs. Tae-hyun was partnered with Lisa, which he suspected was because she could easily overpower him if necessary. The Lumine officer floated ahead, her energy body providing illumination in the dim corridors. They searched the living quarters first. Beds were unmade, personal belongings scattered around. Food sat rotting on tables. It was as if people had disappeared in an instant. No signs of struggle, Lysa observed. No blood, no damage to the structures. Tae-hyun knelt beside an overturned chair. But they were frightened. Look at this. Someone knocked it over running. And here these scratches on the doorframe. Someone tried to hold on, tried not to be dragged away. Lysa examined the marks with her sensors. You have sharp eyes, human. We evolved to notice details, Tae-hyun said. Pattern recognition was survival for my ancestors. They continued searching, finding more small signs of panic. Whatever had taken the colonists had been fast and efficient. By the time the workers realized something was wrong, it was already too late. As night fell on Vendros 9, Unit 47 gathered in the command center. They had found no survivors, no bodies, and no clear evidence of what had happened. Vextal studied their reports, his expression grim. We set up camp here tonight. Tomorrow we expand the search to the mining tunnels. Tae-hyun stared out at the darkening landscape. Somewhere out there something was waiting, something that had learned how to hunt intelligent species without leaving traces. And tomorrow, they would walk right into its hunting ground. His hand rested on his grandfather's knife. Whatever was out there, it had never faced a human before. It didn't know that humans were the best persistence hunters Earth had ever produced. It didn't know that humans had spent millions of years learning how to kill things bigger and stronger than themselves. It had made a mistake by attacking Coalition colonies, but the bigger mistake would be underestimating the humans sent to stop it. The morning on Vendros 9 was barely distinguishable from night. The planet's thick atmosphere filtered out most sunlight, leaving everything in perpetual twilight. Tae-hyun had slept poorly, his combat instincts telling him they were being watched. Commander Vextal gathered the team outside the command center. We split into 3 groups. Crix, you take the eastern mining tunnels. Lysa, check the western sector. I'll investigate the main processing facility with the human. Tae-hyun noticed the dismissive way Vextal said the human instead of using his name. It didn't matter. Words were just air. Actions would prove his worth. They moved out as the toxic wind picked up, carrying dust that scratched against their armor. Tae-hyun followed Vextal toward the massive processing facility where ore was refined. The building loomed like a metal mountain, its machinery still running despite the absence of workers. Stay close, Vextal ordered, and try not to shoot me by accident. I trained at the top of my class, Commander. Human classes, Vextal said with clear skepticism. They entered the facility through a cargo bay door. Inside, conveyor belts moved endlessly, carrying rocks that would never be processed. The noise was deafening, metal grinding against metal, echoes bouncing off high ceilings. Tae-hyun's eyes adjusted to the poor lighting. He noticed something immediately. Commander, the machines are running, but look at the ore. It's backed up. No one has cleared the output bins in days. Vextal examined the bins, consistent with our timeline. The disappearances happened 4 days ago. They moved deeper into the facility. Taehyun kept his rifle ready, scanning every shadow. His heart rate was elevated but controlled. Fear was natural. Panic was the enemy. A sound cut through the mechanical noise. A wet, slithering sound that didn't belong. Both soldiers froze. Vextal's hand signals ordered silence. They moved toward the sound, using the massive machinery as cover. In a darkened corner of the facility, they found it. A pile of equipment and clothing, neatly stacked as if organized by something with intelligence. But no bodies, just empty uniforms and tools. What kind of predator organizes its prey's belongings? Vextal muttered. One that thinks, Taehyun said quietly. One that understands what it's doing. Vextal activated his comm. All units report status. Lisa responded first. Western sector clear. Found similar clothing piles. No bodies. Silence followed. Then static. Crix, respond. Vextal ordered. More static. Then a burst of sound that might have been Crix's voice, distorted and cut short. Then nothing. Vextal's scales rippled with alarm. All units return to the command center immediately. Crix is not responding. They ran through the facility, bursting out into the gray daylight. Lisa was already racing toward them from the western sector, her energy form pulsing with urgency. I heard it, she said. Something in the tunnels. Something big. The three of them sprinted toward the eastern mines where Crix had gone. The entrance was a black mouth in the side of a hill, rails leading into darkness. Emergency lights flickered deep inside. Crix. Vextal shouted into the tunnel. His voice echoed back, mocking them with silence. Taehyun activated his rifle's light attachment. We need to go in. It could be a trap, Lisa warned. It is a trap, Taehyun agreed. But Crix might still be alive. Vextal's expression was unreadable behind his scaled features, but he nodded. Stay together. Watch every direction. They entered the mine shaft, moving carefully. The tunnel was wide enough for mining vehicles, supported by metal beams every few meters. Their lights cut through the darkness, revealing rough stone walls and abandoned equipment. Taehyun noticed marks on the walls. Deep scratches like something with claws had passed through. Commander, look at this. Vextal examined the gouges. Whatever made these is large. Very large. They found Crix's rifle first, lying on the ground with its power cell still active. Then his helmet cracked and dented. A trail of green ichor, Manthar blood, led deeper into the darkness. He fought back, Lisa said, but something took him anyway. Taehyun knelt beside the blood trail. His grandfather had taught him to track deer in the mountains of Korea. This was the same principle, just different prey. Or predator. The blood drops are getting smaller. Either he's bleeding out or he's being carried. The drag marks suggest he's being pulled. How can you tell all that? Vextal asked. Humans evolved as hunters, Commander. We learned to read signs. They followed the trail until it ended at a side tunnel. The entrance was too small for the mining vehicles, probably an exploratory shaft. Inside, the darkness seemed absolute, swallowing their lights. A sound emerged from the blackness. A shriek that was part mechanical, part organic, entirely wrong. It set Taehyun's teeth on edge and made his primitive brain scream warnings. Back to the command center, Vextal ordered. Now. They didn't run, but they moved fast, keeping their weapons trained on the darkness behind them. Something was following them. Taehyun could feel it, the weight of predatory attention. They burst from the mine entrance into the gray light. Taehyun immediately activated his comm. Chiwoo, are you reading me? I'm here, her voice crackled through. Taehyun, what's happening? I'm detecting massive energy signatures near your position. We have contact with an unknown hostile. Crix is missing, possibly dead. I'm alerting Coalition Command. Reinforcements will take 3 days minimum. 3 days. They had to survive 3 days against something that had taken down a Manthar warrior in minutes. Vextal ordered them into a defensive position in the command center. They barricaded the doors and windows, setting up fields of fire. The building was designed to withstand the planet's harsh weather, which meant it had good bones for defense. As they worked, Taehyun's mind raced through tactical scenarios. They were down to 3 soldiers against an unknown enemy. Standard coalition doctrine emphasized firepower and direct confrontation, but that required numbers they didn't have. Night fell completely, turning the world outside black. They sat in the command center with only emergency lights active, conserving power. Every sound made them reach for weapons. What do you think it is? Lisa asked quietly. I think it's several things, Taehyun said. The shriek we heard sounded coordinated with others. They're hunting in packs. Pack hunters, Vextal mused. Intelligent pack hunters that can take down armored soldiers. We need to change tactics, Taehyun said. We can't fight them head-on. Not with 3 soldiers. What do you suggest, human? We make them come to us on our terms. We set traps, create choke points, and force them into situations where their size and strength work against them. Vexthal studied him for a long moment. You're suggesting asymmetric warfare. I'm suggesting we fight smart instead of fighting fair. Before Vexthal could respond, alarms blared. Motion sensors detected movement outside. Multiple contacts, large ones, circling the command center. Through the reinforced windows, they caught glimpses of their enemies. Massive shapes moving with unsettling grace. Their bodies seemed to be part organic, part mechanical. Chitinous armor plates reflected their lights. Multiple limbs ending in claws. Eyes that glowed with malevolent intelligence. What are those things? Lysa whispered. Taehyun felt ice in his veins. These weren't animals. They were weapons. Designed, built, and deployed for hunting. One of the creatures approached the main door. It was 3 meters tall, built like a nightmare. It studied the barrier with obvious intelligence, then reached out with a clawed limb. The metal door groaned under its strength. They're testing our defenses, Taehyun said. Learning. Vexthal raised his rifle. Then let's teach them a lesson. He fired through a gun port, plasma rounds striking the creature's armor. The shot scorched its plating but didn't penetrate. The creature shrieked and retreated into the darkness. Silence fell again. But Taehyun knew it was temporary. The creatures were out there watching, planning. 3 days, Lysa said. We have to hold for 3 days. Taehyun checked his ammunition, counted his supplies, calculated odds. 3 days was a long time when death was scratching at your door, but humans had survived worse. His ancestors had outlasted Ice Age's predators and plagues. He carried that legacy in his genes. The creatures outside didn't know what they were facing. They saw weak prey, easy meat. They had made their first mistake, and Taehyun would make sure it was their last. Dawn brought no relief. The creatures had attacked 3 more times during the night, each assault more organized than the last. They were learning the command center's defenses, probing for weaknesses. Taehyun had barely slept, watching the darkness for movement. Commander Vexthal looked exhausted. His scales had lost some of their shine and his movements were slower. Lysa flickered dimly, her energy reserves depleting with each defensive blast she fired. We can't keep this up, Vexthal admitted. They're wearing us down. Taehyun studied the battlefield outside through the reinforced windows. The creatures had retreated at dawn, but he could see them in the distance, lurking near the mining facilities. Counting them was difficult, but he estimated at least a dozen. Maybe more. We need to stop fighting their way, Taehyun said. Look at them. They're built for direct assault. Heavy armor, powerful weapons, intimidation tactics. That's their strength. And we can't match that strength, Lysa said bitterly. Exactly. So we use our weakness as an advantage. Vexthal's eyes narrowed. Explain. Taehyun activated a holographic display showing the colony's layout. These creatures are big, strong, and well-armored, but that means they're also heavy. They need solid ground. They need space to move. He highlighted several buildings. The processing facility has catwalks 30 meters up. The maintenance tunnels are barely 2 meters wide. The storage silos have access shafts designed for small repair drones. You want us to use the terrain? Vexthal said slowly. I want us to fight where being small is an advantage. We lead them into spaces where their size becomes a liability. We attack and retreat, never letting them pin us down. Lysa pulsed with interest. Guerrilla tactics. My species calls it persistence hunting, Taehyun said. Our ancestors would chase prey for days. Not by being faster, but by never giving up. We'd wound them, let them run, then track them down and wound them again. Eventually, the prey would collapse from exhaustion. That's brutal, Vexthal observed. That's survival. The commander considered this, his claws tapping against the table. Finally, he nodded. It goes against all coalition tactical doctrine. But our doctrine hasn't kept us alive so far. We'll try your human methods. They spent the next hour preparing. Taehyun showed them how to set simple traps using the colony's industrial equipment. Tripwires connected to falling cargo containers. Pressure plates rigged to release steam from heating pipes. Narrow corridors with ambush points on either side. Jiwoo's voice came through Taehyun's comm. I've been analyzing the creatures from your video feeds. They have sensory organs similar to thermal detection. They're hunting you by heat signatures. Can we use that against them? Taehyun asked. Possibly. The geothermal power plant produces massive heat. If you could lure them inside, their sensors would be overwhelmed. They'd be blind. Taehyun relayed this information to Vexthal. The commander studied the power plant on the map. It was half a kilometer away across open ground. Reaching it would be dangerous. We'll need a distraction, Vexthal said. I'll do it, Lisa volunteered. My energy form shows up brighter than both of you on thermal. I can draw them away while you two reach the plant. That's suicide, Taehyun protested. No, that's tactical sacrifice. Something I thought only coalition soldiers understood. She looked at Taehyun with her glowing eyes. But I'm beginning to think humans understand it better than most. They moved out in the weak morning light. Lysa went first, deliberately making herself visible. She fired energy bolts at the distant creatures, taunting them. The response was immediate. 5 of the massive hunters began loping toward her position. Lysa took off in the opposite direction from the power plant, leading them away. Taehyun watched her go, hoping she would survive. Move, Vexthal ordered. They sprinted across the open ground, using abandoned mining vehicles as cover. Twice they heard the creatures shriek, but the sounds were distant. Lisa was doing her job. The power plant was a massive structure, pipes and cables spreading out like arteries. The entrance was sealed, but Taehyun used his cutting torch to breach it. They slipped inside into sweltering heat. Jiwoo, we're in the plant, Taehyun reported. Good, I'm accessing the colony's network. Give me a minute to map the internal structure. While they waited, Vexthal checked his ammunition. I underestimated you, human. Your species. I thought you were weak. We are weak, Taehyun said. Compared to most species, we're fragile. But we learned to compensate. How did your species survive at all? Taehyun smiled grimly. We learned to work together. We learned to make tools. And we learned that if you can't win a fight, you change the rules until you can. Jiwoo's voice interrupted. I've got the layout. The plant has 3 main levels. The geothermal core is at the bottom. If you can lure the creatures down there, the heat will disable their sensors completely. How do we survive the heat? Vexthal asked. There are maintenance suits in the equipment lockers. They're designed for short exposures to extreme temperatures. Should buy you 15, maybe 20 minutes. 20 minutes to kill a dozen armored killing machines. Taehyun had faced worse odds. At least that's what he told himself. They found the maintenance suits and struggled into them. The suits were bulky, designed for Manthar workers, but they managed. Moving in them felt like walking through mud. Now what? Vexthal asked. Now we make noise, Taehyun said. He activated the plant's emergency systems. Alarms blared throughout the facility. Lights flashed. It was impossible to miss the creatures heard. Through the plant's windows, Taehyun saw them turn toward the sound. They abandoned their pursuit of Lysa and began converging on the power plant. They're coming, Vexthal observed unnecessarily. Down, Taehyun ordered. We need to be at the core level. They descended through maintenance shafts and emergency stairs. The heat intensified with each level, becoming oppressive even through the suits. Sweat poured down Taehyun's face, stinging his eyes. The core level was a cathedral of machinery. Massive turbines spun, converting geothermal energy to power. The heat was like a physical force pressing against them. The air shimmered with it. The creatures entered the plant above them. Taehyun could hear their claws on metal, their shrieks echoing through the structure. They were hunting, following thermal signatures that now pointed everywhere and nowhere. They're confused, Vexthal said. Their sensors are useless down here. Then let's make them more confused. Taehyun began shutting down systems, plunging sections of the plant into darkness. He activated steam releases, filling corridors with hot mist. He opened and closed blast doors randomly, creating a maze that constantly changed. The creatures roared with frustration. They could no longer rely on their enhanced senses. They were reduced to hunting by sight and sound alone, and humans had spent millions of years perfecting camouflage and stealth. One creature found its way to the core level. It was massive up close, all claws and teeth and armored plating. Its eyes swept the area, searching. Taehyun stood perfectly still in the shadows. His heart hammered, but he controlled his breathing. Silent. Invisible. The creature's gaze passed right over him. When it turned, Taehyun fired. His plasma round struck the back of its knee joint where armor met flesh. The creature shrieked and stumbled. Vexthal emerged from another hiding spot, firing at its other leg. The creature fell, its massive weight crashing against the floor. It tried to rise, but its legs wouldn't support it anymore. Taehyun approached carefully and fired a final round into what he hoped was its brain. The creature stopped moving. One down. Bexthal said. 11 to go. They continued their deadly game. Lure the creatures down. Ambush them in the heat and darkness. Target their weak points. One by one, the hunters became the hunted. But each kill took time, and the maintenance suits were failing. Taehyun felt dizzy from heat exhaustion. His hands shook as he reloaded his rifle. "We can't keep this up," Bexthal gasped. "The suits are nearly gone." They had killed 6 creatures. 6 more remained, and these were learning to be cautious. They stayed together now, watching each other's backs. "We need to finish this fast," Taehyun said. "How?" Taehyun looked at the massive geothermal core. An idea formed, crazy and desperate. "Jiwoo, can you overload the core?" "What?" "Taehyun, that would cause an explosion." "Exactly. These things are tough, but can they survive a volcanic eruption?" "You'll die too," Jiwoo's voice was frantic. "Not if we're in the emergency bunker. Every geothermal plant has one, right?" Silence. "Then yes, north side of the building, reinforced against core breaches." "How long until you can trigger an overload?" 5 minutes once I start the sequence." Taehyun looked at Vexthal. "Commander, your call." The Draxan studied him with those yellow eyes. Then he laughed, a sound like grinding rocks. "You humans are absolutely insane. I approve. Let's kill these things." Jiwoo initiated the overload sequence. Warning lights bathed the geothermal plant in red. Alarms screamed warnings that no one would heed. Deep below, the core began building toward catastrophic failure. 5 minutes, Taehyun reminded Vexthal. "We need to reach the bunker." The remaining 6 creatures realized something was wrong. They might not have understood the technology, but they recognized danger. Their shrieks took on a panicked quality as they scrambled toward exits. Taehyun and Vexthal ran for the north side of the building. Their maintenance suits were failing, alarms in their helmets warning of dangerous heat exposure. Every breath burned Taehyun's lungs. His vision swam with dark spots. 2 creatures blocked their path. They had positioned themselves near an exit, cutting off escape. Their eyes glowed with predatory intelligence. These were learning, adapting. "Through them," Vexthal growled. "No other choice," they charged. Taehyun fired his rifle on full automatic, emptying his power cell into the nearest creature's face. The plasma rounds burned through its optical sensors, blinding it. The thing shrieked and thrashed wildly. Vexthal tackled the second creature low, his Draxan strength surprising it. His claws found gaps in its armor, tearing into synthetic flesh. The creature tried to shake him off, but Vexthal held on with savage determination. Taehyun reloaded and fired into the second creature's exposed back. It collapsed, taking Vexthal with it. The commander rolled free, his armor scored with claw marks but intact. "Move," Taehyun shouted. They sprinted past the dying creatures. Behind them, the plant's structure groaned. Metal twisted under impossible stress. The core was building toward critical mass. The bunker entrance was a heavy blast door marked with safety symbols. Taehyun slammed his palm against the access panel. "The door remains sealed. It's locked," he shouted. "Jiwoo, emergency override." Vexthal barked into his comm. "Working on it," came her strained reply. "The colony's network is fragmenting." "Hold on," the building shook. Cracks appeared in walls. Steam erupted from broken pipes. The remaining creatures fled toward any exit they could find, abandoning their hunt in the face of greater danger. The blast door hissed and began opening. Too slowly, far too slowly. A creature rounded the corner behind them. It saw the opening bunker and understood what it meant: safety, survival. It charged toward them with terrifying speed. "Get inside." Taehyun pushed Vexthal through the partially opened door. The creature was 10 meters away. 5 meters. Its claws reached for him. Taehyun threw himself through the gap. The blast door sensed obstruction and stopped closing. The creature's clawed limb jammed into the opening, preventing it from sealing. "Override the safety," Vexthal shouted at the control panel. "It'll damage the door." Jiwoo's voice protested. "Do it." The blast door's motors whined with strain. The creature pushed against it, forcing the opening wider. Its head began squeezing through, jaws snapping at Taehyun's face. Taehyun pulled his grandfather's knife. The blade was ancient steel, sharp from decades of care. He drove it into the creature's eye, twisting hard. The creature shrieked but kept pushing forward. The blast door continued closing, inexorably crushing the creature's limb. Synthetic bones cracked, fluid sprayed. The creature's shriek reached a fever pitch, then its limb severed. The blast door slammed shut. The creature's severed limb twitched on the bunker floor while its owner howled outside. "Seal integrity at 90%, Jiwoo reported. "It'll hold. How long until detonation?" Taehyun asked, panting. 30 seconds. They stripped off the failing maintenance suits. The bunker was small, designed for emergency shelter during core breaches. It had air filtration, radiation shielding, and supplies for a week. Everything they needed to survive, everything except certainty. Will the bunker really protect us? Vexthal asked. We'll find out in 20 seconds, Taehyun said. Outside, the creatures' shrieks faded as they fled the doomed building. Taehyun wondered if they would escape in time. Part of him hoped they wouldn't. Part of him felt sorry for them. They were weapons built by someone else, used for purposes they might not understand. 10 seconds. Jiwoo's voice was barely a whisper. Taehyun braced against the wall. Vexthal did the same. They locked eyes. Two soldiers from different worlds, united in the moment before potential death. The world exploded. The bunker shook like a toy in a child's hand. Metal screamed. Taehyun was thrown against the wall hard enough to crack his ribs. The lights failed. Emergency backups kicked in, casting everything in dim red. The shaking continued for an eternity. 30 seconds. A minute, 2 minutes. The geothermal core's energy released all at once, vaporizing everything above it. The plant collapsed inward, then burst outward, spreading superheated death across the colony. Finally, silence. Blessed ringing silence Taehyun heard everywhere. His ribs screamed with each breath. His head throbbed. Blood ran from a cut on his forehead. But he was alive, Commander. He called into the darkness. A groan answered. Still here, human. Remind me never to follow your plans again. Taehyun laughed, then gasped as his ribs protested. Did it work? Jiwoo, Vexthal spoke into his comm. Status report, Static answered. Then Jiwoo's shaking voice. You're alive. Oh, thank the stars, you're alive. I'm reading massive thermal signatures across the colony. Everything in a 300-meter radius of the plant is gone. The creatures, the buildings, everything. Survivors, Taehyun asked, though he knew the answer. Scanning. I'm detecting 6 heat signatures beyond the blast radius. The creatures that escaped are scattered, injured, fleeing. Vexthal sat up slowly, checking himself for serious injuries. We wait here until it's safe to exit. Then we finish what we started. Commander, you're injured. We're both injured, I'm aware. Vexthal's eyes gleamed in the dim light. But those things killed Crix, they killed the colonists. We don't leave until they're all dead. Taehyun understood. This wasn't about tactics anymore. It was about justice. Or revenge. Sometimes they were the same thing. They waited 4 hours before the bunker's sensors indicated safe temperature levels outside. The blast door opened with a groan of tortured metal. Beyond, hell had come to Vendros 9. The geothermal plant was gone, replaced by a crater that glowed with residual heat. The surrounding buildings were collapsed ruins. Fires burned despite the thin atmosphere. The colony was destroyed. Lysa found them as they emerged. Her energy form was dim, flickering. I saw it from the command center. Thought you were dead? Nearly were, Vexthal admitted. Status of remaining hostiles? Scattered. My sensors picked up 6, but they're wounded and moving away from each other. We hunt them down, Taehyun said, one by one. For the next day, they became hunters. They tracked each creature across the barren landscape, found them hiding in mining tunnels, in collapsed buildings, in desperate attempts to escape. Each time they used tactics the creatures didn't expect. Ambushes, traps, patience. Humans had spent millions of years perfecting the art of pursuit, of tracking wounded prey across impossible distances, of never, ever giving up. The 6th and final creature tried to dig into the ground, burrowing to safety. They found it exhausted, its claws bloody from scratching at stone. It turned to face them with defiant eyes. Taehyun raised his rifle. You were built to hunt. You were good at it. But you never faced humans before. He fired. The creature fell. They stood in the toxic wind, 3 soldiers covered in dust and blood, and victory. What were these things? Lysa asked. Taehyun examined the dead creature. Now that they weren't fighting for their lives, he could study its construction. Biomechanical, he had been right about that. But the craftsmanship was advanced. Military grade. Someone made these as weapons. Someone deployed them against coalition colonies. An act of war, Vexthal said grimly. Jiwoo's voice crackled through their comms. I have news. Admiral Sung-ho's fleet just arrived in system. They engaged an unknown vessel in orbit. The vessel was destroyed before it could escape. Did they identify it? Vexthal asked, working on it. But Taehyun, they're sending down rescue now. You're coming home. Home. The word felt foreign after what they'd endured, but also welcome. Vexthal turned to Taehyun. I was wrong about humans. About you specifically. You're one of the finest soldiers I've ever served with. Thank you, Commander. Don't thank me. You earned it through blood and fire. That's the only way respect is earned. They waited for the rescue ships. Taehyun looked at the ruined colony, at the bodies of creatures scattered across the landscape. So much death. So much destruction, but also survival. Humanity's greatest strength wasn't physical power. It was the refusal to quit. The determination to adapt, to overcome, to win no matter what. The creatures had made a mistake. They had underestimated their prey, and that mistake had cost them everything. 3 weeks passed before Taehyun was cleared to leave the medical bay. His ribs had healed, the cuts and burns faded to scars. The doctors said he was lucky. He didn't feel lucky. He felt tired. The Infinite Dawn had docked at Coalition Central Command, a massive station that served as the heart of galactic government. Thousands of species moved through its corridors, going about the business of maintaining peace across hundreds of worlds. Taehyun stood before the floor-to-ceiling windows of the observation deck, watching ships come and go. Jiwoo found him there, bringing 2 cups of terrible station coffee. Thought you might need this, she said, handing him a cup. Thanks. He sipped the bitter liquid and grimaced. Still tastes like engine coolant. That's how you know it's working. She stood beside him, looking out at the stars. How are you feeling? Like I got thrown into a geothermal explosion. Because you did. Taehyun smiled slightly. Fair point. They stood in comfortable silence. Jiwoo had been there when the rescue ships brought them back. She had cried when she saw him, though she denied it now. Some things didn't need to be discussed. Commander Vexthal is testifying before the Coalition Council today, Jiwoo said. About what happened on Vendros 9, I heard. They didn't invite me. They're bringing you in tomorrow. The council wants to hear your account personally. Taehyun's stomach tightened. Speaking before the council meant addressing representatives from every major species in the coalition, including plenty who still believed humans were too weak to contribute meaningfully to galactic affairs. What will you tell them? Jiwoo asked. The truth. That we barely survived. That Crix died because we weren't prepared for what we faced. And that human tactics saved the survivors. I don't know if they want to hear that. Jiwoo turned to face him. Taehyun, what you did out there changed things. Vexthal is pushing for human strategic doctrine to be integrated into Vanguard training. Do you know how big that is? He didn't. The weight of it hadn't really settled on him yet. He had been focused on surviving, then healing. The broader implications remained distant. You proved we belong here, Jiwoo continued. Not as mascots or token members, but as equals. The door to the observation deck opened. Commander Vexthal entered, his scales gleaming with fresh polish. He wore his formal uniform decorated with medals earned across decades of service. Human. Jiwoo. He nodded to each of them. I thought I might find you here. Commander, Taehyun straightened. How did the testimony go? As well as could be expected. The council is concerned about the biomechanical weapons. Analysis of the destroyed vessel confirms it belonged to a rogue faction operating in the Outer Rim. The same faction responsible for the other disappearances. Confirmed. They were testing their weapons on isolated colonies before deploying them more broadly. Thanks to your actions, we stopped them before they could. Taehyun thought about the colonists who hadn't been saved, the families who lost members, Crix who died in those dark tunnels. We didn't stop them fast enough. No, Vexthal agreed. But we stopped them. That matters. The Draxan commander moved to stand beside them at the window. For a moment, they were just 3 soldiers watching the stars. I spoke on your behalf before the council, Vexthal said. I told them that you showed courage, tactical brilliance, and determination beyond what any coalition soldier should possess. I told them that underestimating humans was the gravest mistake our alliance could make. What did they say? Jiwoo asked. Many argued. Many dismissed my words as emotion overriding logic, but many listened. He turned to Taehyun. You have advocates now, human. Species who saw the footage from Vendros 9. Who understand what you accomplished with limited resources against overwhelming odds. I just did what I was trained to do. No, you did something no other species would have done. You adapted. You overcame. You refused to accept defeat even when it seemed inevitable. Vexthal's eyes held something like respect. Those are uniquely human traits. The next day, Taehyun stood before the Coalition Council. The chamber was vast, with seating for representatives from hundreds of worlds. Only the major powers attended in person. The rest appeared as holograms watching from across the galaxy. Ambassador Hyo-jin stood beside him, humanity's diplomatic representative. She had spent years fighting for recognition, for resources, for respect. Now she smiled at him with quiet pride. The council recognizes Specialist Taehyun of Earth, the speaker announced. You may present your testimony. Taehyun stepped forward. His hands didn't shake. His voice didn't waver. He had faced worse than politicians. He told them everything. The attack, the loss of Crix, the decision to use asymmetric warfare, the destruction of the geothermal plant. He didn't embellish. Didn't make himself sound heroic. Just reported the facts as he had lived them. When he finished, silence filled the chamber. Finally, a Draxan counselor spoke. You destroyed an entire facility, resulted in millions of credits in damage. Yes, counselor. It was necessary to eliminate the threat. You acted without authorization, made tactical decisions that violated standard protocol. Standard protocol would have gotten us all killed, counselor. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Some species nodded. Others looked outraged at his directness. The speaker raised a hand for silence. The council acknowledges your service, Specialist Taehyun. Your actions saved Coalition lives and exposed a significant threat. However, your methods remain controversial. Permission to speak freely, speaker? Granted. Taehyun took a breath. Every species in this chamber has strengths humans don't possess. You're stronger, faster, better armored. Many of you live longer, think faster, or have senses we can only dream about. By every physical measure, humans are weak. The chamber remained silent. But my species survived on a world that tried to kill us every day. We survived ice ages and predators and disasters. We learned that winning doesn't require being the strongest. It requires being the smartest, the most persistent, the most adaptable. He met the eyes of various counselors. Those creatures on Vendros 9 were built to kill heavily armored soldiers. They were designed to counter Coalition tactics. But they weren't designed to face humans. Because humans fight dirty, a counselor muttered. Because humans fight smart, Taehyun corrected. We change the rules when the rules don't favor us. We turn our weaknesses into strengths. And most importantly, we never surrender. Ambassador Hyo-jin stepped forward. The council must decide whether humanity's contributions are valuable. But I submit that Specialist Taehyun has already proven our worth, not through strength but through ingenuity. The debate that followed lasted hours. Taehyun was dismissed while the council deliberated. He waited in an anteroom with Jiwoo, not speaking, just existing in the uncertainty. When they were finally summoned back, the speaker delivered the verdict. The Coalition Council has voted to integrate human strategic doctrine into Vanguard tactical training. Furthermore, human personnel will be assigned to all mixed species units to provide alternative tactical perspectives. Ambassador Hyo-jin, your people's provisional membership is hereby made permanent. The chamber erupted in mixed reactions. Some species applauded. Others protested loudly. Hyo-jin smiled with tears in her eyes. 30 years of work had led to this moment. Taehyun felt the weight lift slightly from his shoulders. Not gone entirely. The doubters remained. The challenges would continue. But humanity had proven something important. They belonged here. Months later, Taehyun returned to Earth on leave. New Seoul had grown since he left, reaching higher into the sky. But the mountains beyond remained unchanged, ancient and patient. His grandfather's house stood where it always had, small and traditional among the modern towers. The old man sat on the porch, sharpening a knife with rhythmic, practiced movements. You came back, his grandfather said without looking up. I did. The news says you're a hero. The news exaggerates. His grandfather finally looked at him, eyes sharp despite his age. Do they? I heard you faced monsters in the dark, survived when others died, proved that humans can stand with gods. They're not gods, grandfather, just other species. To them, you were the monster. The old man resumed sharpening, a small weak thing that refused to die. That hunted them across dead ground. That destroyed their strength with cleverness, he smiled. Very human. Taehyun sat beside him, taking comfort in the familiar sound of blade against stone. I returned your knife, he said. I know. Jiwoo's mother told me. Said you used it well. It saved my life. No, you saved your life. The knife was just metal. His grandfather set down the sharpening stone, but I'm glad it was there when you needed it. They sat in silence as the sun set over the mountains. Somewhere above, coalition ships moved between stars. Somewhere out there, humans were proving themselves day by day, mission by mission. The galaxy had underestimated them, had called them weak, soft, unprepared for the harsh realities of interstellar life. But they were learning. Slowly, species by species, they were learning. Humans weren't the strongest. They weren't the fastest. They weren't the most advanced, but they were survivors, adapters, winners of wars that couldn't be won by strength alone. And that, Taehyun knew, was the most dangerous thing they could be. On Vendros 9, the rogue faction had made two mistakes. The first was belittling him,